we do things and it's like to put a miss in front of the name.
Well, and I teach preschool, so, and young children, so Miss Julie is,
Yeah. And
what?
I picked her up at, remember I was talking about the daycare that Caitlin went to, the school that Caitlin went to?
She's on the way.
Oh, she's on her way, okay.
Yeah, she.
That's where I picked up Ms. Turlington. She was once upon a time the educational coordinator there. She was a teacher for Caitlin. And we just got stuck, so I've known her for quite a long time. Ms. Caitlin was about two or three. Yeah.
How old is she now?
18 and...
I'm not that old.
No, she didn't get any older.
I've not gotten a day older.
And if you want my folks, this is a really nice group of folks. I just grin at them, they grin at me every time we come in here. Is that a sincere grin or not?
It was very sincere.
Very sincere. Sincerely, okay, so usually, just one second. Usually I do this with a big group of early childhood educators, and what we do is we break up into smaller groups and we kind of go through this paperwork, and so you'll get like birth to 3 months and you'll get 3 to 6 months, and kind of break it down. But to me, that's going to take us a lot of time. That's kind of monotonous, and so let's just do it all together, I think. But I'll have to kind of know your names, and I'm not going to remember it. So if we can go through and
My name is Frankie.
and tell me what your degree is, or what you're doing, like what you're.
I'm a major in English and minoring in secondary education.
And so you're going to be a teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm Rachel. I'm going to be doing basically the same thing.
Okay.
My name is Shaq.
Like the football player?
Yes. No,
I mean the basketball player?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. I am a history major with a license in social studies.
And what are you going to do?
Teach.
Teach? Okay, hey.
I'm Maureen, and I'm a special education major, so I plan on teaching special ed.
I did that, and I thought about bringing some stuff for that, and I thought, let's not get too crazy, but I have some stuff that you can look at.
Oh, awesome.
Hello, my name is Jalen, and I'm a psychology major.
Jalen, and what are you going to do, Jalen? Teach?
As a backup plan, I went over with just youth development, and not really for teaching aspect, but how like them like from a young age to like adults, how to get to college, those kind of fields, stuff like that.
Okay, excellent. So more middle school, high school kind of kids? Okay, ooh, woo. You have fun with that. I'll keep my little guys. So I've been an early childhood educator since 1996. I don't know if you're familiar with what Montessori is, but that's my background, and I'm trained in Montessori, classically trained in Montessori, which is kind of a big deal, because most people who say they're Montessori have never really done the training and never really practiced it. A lot of things when you see Montessori on a sign or whatever, you can use that name. I mean, you can use that name if you want to be Mr. Montessori. Go ahead, and no, there's really no licensing to it or any way to regulate it. So
That's kind of sad, actually.
it really is. Anybody can use her name, and anybody can say that they're Montessori. But when you walk in the door, you really know the difference. There's like a whole different atmosphere in a Montessori environment. Well, so in Fayetteville, we're not really conducive to $1,000 tuition every month, unless you're the Fayetteville Academy, and I'm not. So my center that I own now, we kind of merged into what's best practices in early childhood, and then taken Montessori, which is a beautiful way to teach. Kind of merge it together, and we give lessons, and our classrooms are set up in a Montessori way, but our children are there 10 to 12 hours a day. So we can take that into consideration. That's not such a strict environment, and so regimented for them for the whole day.
Can you sit over there?
Hey, welcome. You're fine.
Oh, my.
So, does anybody have a baby? Have ever had a baby? Been around a baby?
I mean, maybe siblings.
Okay, that counts.
I don't have any babies, but been around lots of babies, and I actually, before I joined the military, I actually taught infant toddlers and preschoolers for a year up in Massachusetts.
Okay, that's a big learning experience. Don't bite, stop. There's a lot that goes into teaching little kids.
It really
So without having a baby or little kids, it's really hard. You think, oh well, okay, so they do this and then they do that and then they do this, and then they walk around, and, you know, so what we're gonna kinda do is go through some of this stuff. The front sheet that you have is language delays. That's really specific to like how their development of their language goes. So we'll put that aside because language really starts when the minute they pop out, they're starting language, but we don't really recognize it as that unless you're a parent. You really recognize the difference between their cries, the sad cry, the hurt cry, the hungry cry. You know, there are differences, and it's really hard to tell the difference in that cry unless you're a primary caregiver or the parent of the child. So then, mine is purple. It says your baby's development. So the next sheet might be that. Okay, so this goes through and it talks about basically the first page, if you notice, it's birth to 3 months, and then the next one is 3 months to 6 months. Each page adds 3 or 4 months, and then when it gets to a little bit older, over to 6 months, all the way up to 30 months. So that's going to kind of give us an idea of what our kids can do when they're from birth, like what should they be doing, and then to up to 30 months, 36 months. And then the next one is kind of the same thing. It's just going to give you an overview of some ages and stages, like what they should be doing at what age. So tell me what you guys think is kind of the normal progression of a baby from till they're about 3 months old. When they're born, like what do? They cry. They definitely cry. Oh, come on, what? They sleep a lot, and some of them sleep a lot, and some of them are wide awake, but yeah, they sleep.
Drool.
They drool. Oh, come on, dirty diapers.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
They poop a lot, and they pee a lot.
They start trying to hold their head up. Caitlin was 10 days old, trying to hold her head up, see what was going on.
Right, but you know, when you ever, somebody gives you a baby, they say, oh, hold their head, because they have no control of that head, and it'll flap around, but they're not gonna die. They're very resilient. You can flip them upside down, you can hold them by their feet. They're really rubbery, and they don't cry very much when you do things like that. One of the things that doctors do is they'll hold them by their belly and let their legs hang and their arms hang and kind of see where there's movement. So another thing that they do is they have reflexes. So if you touch the bottom of their feet or the palms of their hands, they're going to do this. If you touch the side of their cheek, they're going to suck automatically. So those reflexes are some of the things that they're just born with. And thank God we have that, because if you've ever known a mom who can't get her baby to nurse or feed, it just is frustrating because you feel like the worst mom, you know, and all that. So those are some of the things that we look for if they're doing that. Well, so then they start lifting up their head, looking around, doing some stuff like that. And then, so what do you think kind of comes next? What are we looking for next when we're looking at babies?
Maybe for the first 3 months.
Sorry?
For the first 3 months or after?
We're about through the first 3 months. I feel like we got, so at about 2.5 to 3 months, they should be starting to do some other things. So think about what you would want to see in a little baby. You've never had one, so it's kind of hard, but.
I'm guessing we probably start recognizing on your faces.
Recognizing your faces, absolutely. Recognizing if somebody's smiling at you or grumpy, you know, they're seeing a difference. They might not be able to kind of give you a response that you're looking for, but definitely they're looking to see if you're happy when you see them, right?
Probably responding to sound.
Some sound. So how would they respond to sound? What do you think they would do to respond to a sound?
I guess I know it's probably crying because it's too
Maybe cry if it's too loud. But if it's just a coo, coo, hey, mommy's here, blah, 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 what do you think they're going to do?
smiling.
And they're going to look for mommy. They're going to start using their eyes to look for things. So they're going to hear, their hearing starts to develop. About 3 months, they're really hearing and picking up that a sound is over here, and so they're going to look for it. And also, what are we going to do with a baby? We're going to be in their face, right? So what are we going to look for to make sure that, hey, this kid's kind of normal? We're going to make sure they're looking back at us, and that if we talk to them, they're looking for us. If we hold a toy up, it's called tracking. We really wanna make sure we got some tracking going on. Some of the very first signs of autism are if they don't track. They should be tracking by 6 months for sure.
I know
And, go
I know
ahead.
my niece, yes, my sister's daughter, I think she's about 5 months, 12 months, 5 months, can't remember.
Okay, so
I
you're,
know she didn't track, she was starting to try stuff with her toys, they didn't look around, follow her ass. And also almost starting with her vowels, I believe. I think they started to make the vowel sounds.
right, ooh, ba, 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 ma, 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 ma. The first ones are da, 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 and ma, 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 usually. Sometimes they'll get a ba, ba, or a la, 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 which is a very unusual, L is like a 5-year-old sound, but occasionally you'll get, a baby, so we really wanna hear some talking. Some children babble constantly, singing themselves to sleep, talking, singing, all this. Some children don't make a sound, and you're like, ugh. But it's really just each child. There are some things that you definitely want to make sure that you're seeing. Okay, so your baby's 4.5, 5 months old, something
Yes.
like that. Is it a girl or boy? Is she sitting up by herself? Okay, so around 4 months, you can plop them on their bottom, and they should be able to kind of keep themselves sort of, up. Now, of course, they're gonna go face first down or straight back, but so that core should be getting a little bit stronger now. You should start seeing when you hold your baby up by their hands, they should be doing a little bit of bouncing, those kind of things. So after you start getting to where they're rolling over. So rolling over is a big deal. When they start doing that, mommies are like, oh yeah, they're rolling over. My child rolled over at 24 days old. I know this because his birthday is December the 1st, and he rolled over on Christmas Eve. I called my mom at 12 o'clock midnight. I'm like, Mom, the baby just rolled over. She's like, he did not. He's way too young for that. I said, Mom, I swear. She said, make him do it again. So I put him back on his tummy, lifted that little head up, and his head was so big that it just boom, pulled him right over. So he did do it. It wasn't purposeful movement, but it was rolling over. So once he got that sensation of doing that, then he's like, oh, I can do this again, and he kept doing it. Going back the other way was a little harder because that head was hard to get back, the way it's supposed to go. But so your baby started rolling over, sitting up now, kind of, when you pull up, they're just automatically standing up. Most children walk about their first birthday. Some, I don't know why this is, but a lot of African American children start walking at about 9 or 10 months. They seem to be a little bit quicker physically in certain things. And then there are some, like my child, he rolled over at 24 days old, but he didn't walk till he was 15 months old. He's pulling a stand forever. So there's the next kind of thing that we're looking for. We're starting to eat food now. At about 6 months, we start introducing regular food and stuff like that. So by this point, they should be no more gurping up stuff. They should be able to eat some, baby food and spoon-fed and things like that. Those pouches are like the best thing ever. Because they can even hold those and squeeze them themselves at a certain, about this time. Now they're starting to really recognize when people are leaving them, coming back, stuff like that. So they're starting to, you can see their personality kind of starting to form now. You can kind of tell that the baby is more alert when you walk in and sees, oh, I know you, I recognize you. When you leave, they might cry. My niece goes to my daycare, and when I walk in, she just turned 1. Well, before New Year's, she didn't care a thing about me. I could come and go, and she didn't care at all. Well, her New Year's resolution was to make sure that Aunt Julie, or Miss Julie, didn't leave her. So now when I walk in, she cries, she holds her hands up, she's like, oh, and so, I can't even hardly walk in there anymore. But she's a year old. So starting from 6 months to about 18 months, they go through some real separation stuff. Oh, you're my mommy, you're my daddy, you're supposed to be with me, and then whoever I leave, like if you leave your child with the babysitter, that's who's supposed to care for your child. Your kid doesn't understand that somebody else might come in, or, you know, whatever. My mom left me with you, so I really need you to take care of me. So they have a lot of that going on. They should be singing now, kind of just making some noises, and some are starting to really, at 6 to 9 months, you're seeing more control of their body. They're able to we do a lot of tummy time now because we want them to be reaching for toys, following, tracking stuff that's walking by. The dog walks by, they're the whole way. Those kind of things. You want to make sure your kid's tracking things and following things. A lot of children who have autism don't show very much interest in the things that are going on around them. And the reason I keep mentioning autism is because it's so prevalent in our society. You will see children with autism. You will teach children with autism. If you are in a classroom with children, you will have children with autism. We have lots of other special needs, but for the most part, the children with autism are our biggest challenge, I would say, in any educational setting. So they're trying to babble at you, talk to you, they're trying to get you to understand they want something to drink, you know, eat, they're hungry, those kind of things. They don't want a nap, they want their passy, you know, those kind of things. And then, like I said, they're starting to show their personality. They're laughing at you, trying to get you to laugh at them, those kind of things. So 9 to 12 months, they're understanding what you're saying now. So if you say, give me a kiss, you know, they're doing that. Blow kisses, wave bye-bye. You know, they're starting to do all these things. When you have a toy and they come, you know, they'll waddle over, they're crawling now. They're doing commandos, you know, there are lots of children.
Do you know, and I'm sorry, I was a long hospital, and there was a little baby, 14 months old, 14 months old, playing on the mama's cell phone. 14, because I had to stop.
You had to ask.
I had to. I said, how old is your child? 14 months old. And that child was playing on that cell phone, just like she was just an adult. 14 months old.
Yeah,
So
well, that's a whole nother, you know, that's a whole nother ball of
A
wax
whole
that
nother
you,
ball of
that's gonna
wax.
affect, it's gonna affect you. It doesn't affect me, because they're so little right now. My kids are under 5, so we just don't have electronics at school. We just don't have that. But my kid's 12, my personal child, and he wants a phone. He wants it all the time. He wants it with him. He wants to check that Instagram. He, like, you know, don't let that phone bling bling at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's like, whoop. Like, you can't even get out of bed, but you can answer your Instagram at 5 o'clock. So, yeah, that's going to be an issue that I think we'll just have to address as it becomes so prevalent that we have no choice but to figure that out. Let's see.
I didn't mean to jump track.
No, they're object permanents. You know, they're playing peekaboo, and when you hide, they're gone. Well, around 9 to 12 months, they start realizing that you're behind the blanket and stuff like that, where you are. That when you leave, you're still there. When you put a toy under the blanket, you can lift the blanket up and it's there. I love to do things, repetitive. Children in general are very repetitive. They'll watch the same movie 1,000 times. Probably y'all watched, you can think of the movie that you watched. Because DVRs and stuff are popular right when you're, so your mom was like, yes, put that on again. Yes, we'll watch Barney 1,000 times. Sure, yes, we can do that. Now parents are like, oh no, we watch 12 minutes of TV a day. So then, about 1, they start walking, and once they're walking, once they're up and moving, it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna kind of walk over here. It's I'm off. have a little girl right now. She was walking at 10 months. She walks like this. So every day, her mom's like, why is she bumping her head? Because she's not watching where she's going. And you can't train that. You can't teach her how to like stay with her head up. So she's falling down and bumping her head. She'll walk right into that thing. Like, Evelyn! We scream at her all the time. I don't know how to make her do that though. But she's been walking for a long time. She's just turned 1 in December.
Oh.
And she's just, it's just the way she learned how to, it's just what she does. But she'll figure it out quickly enough. Right now, they're starting to talk to you. They're saying like one-word utterances. No, mine. They're starting to bite their friends. 1-year-old is like, really, when I want that, give me that pencil, and there, you know. So biting is extremely common at this age, especially when there's more than like one in the room. They can throw a ball, turn pages in a book. They're starting to understand reading a book, you know, looking at the pages that mommy reads or the teacher reads and I listen. They're starting to participate in activities like when you're dancing or singing a song, they're dancing to it or clapping or doing the wheels on the bus. Those kind of things, following other people's movements. Baby Shark, I'm not sure if you've heard Baby Shark, but it's a very popular thing right now. And they decided to make it for Halloween and for everything else. Well, one of our teachers found that a year and a half ago, and it went viral now. And we're like, Sarah, you discovered Baby Shark! They can do the difference, even that one, they can do the difference between the baby shark and the mommy shark and the daddy. They get what you're doing now. Grandma, they don't get that. But they do this, but they don't understand why we're doing this. But so, you know, if they can pick up little things like that, a little nuance of doing this as opposed to this, then they're paying a lot of attention to things. Sometimes it doesn't, you don't realize what they're picking up. A lot of parents will give their children a device. They'll watch a horror movie. They'll take their kid to Avengers or something like that. And they're really putting an impression on their child that you just can't take that back away. This age, to me, anything they see when they're about 1, 1.5, 2, Montessori called it their absorbent mind, and they are just everything goes in, everything, that sponge just picks it up. So, although you think your child's not hearing you say all these bad words and talking appropriately about their dad on the phone or, you know, whatever, they are hearing these things.
On that tone and stuff.
They understand tone better than they understand the words. They might not understand the word S-H-I-T, but they understand completely the tone that you're using when you say that word. So, you know what I mean? So, this is a time when I think parents think their children aren't really that aware of what's happening, but they really, really are. Let's see. We're starting to get to now, they've got it broken down into 6 months, but from 1 to 2, it gets kind of cloudy as to what you're going to do as a child or what you're going to do or what you're going to do. They all do the same things in development. Sometimes they're just a little, potty training is a perfect example. We have some children that we say, he's going to be, when I'm ready, and we're not even going to try anything until one day he goes in there and he's like, I'm ready, boom, and he never has an accident, maybe 2 in his whole life. We've got some girls, some boys, it just depends. Some children who have to have 42 accidents before they get it. Oh, you know, so pull-ups don't do a bit of good. You wear pull-ups for 2 years and then put panties on and they don't understand the difference. So every child is different in their development, but they all develop that way. Typically developing children. Children who have normalcies. Children with autism may not do that. There are lots of differences in how they do things. But if you don't see a baby track, well, yeah, you need to definitely kind of keep your eye on that and make sure that eventually they're tracking. If your baby is not sitting up, we have a little boy, Will, he has no core strength whatsoever. We call him a sloth. He's just a sloth. He has no core strength. So we put him in a stander, in a, you know, like a seat where his feet touch the ground, and he's really able to hold his body up now. But at first, he was like hanging onto that seat, and he'd like try to play with something, but he really had no core strength. Well, he all of a sudden developed the ability to sit up, and he's starting to kind of move around the environment. He's trying to get where he wants to go. He can get up to your leg and kind of pull on your leg a little bit. So he's developed, but he's almost 7 months old. So you kind of start worrying when they're not doing the things that you think they should be doing. Now, whether it's at 6 months or 9 months, that's kind of a relative term to me. When we give children assessments and stuff like that, which you'll have to do so much, it's ridiculous how much you have to assess children. They'll say, oh, at this age, they should be able to take a stick and put it under a box and get a toy and bring it back to them. Well, if they've never seen that activity, you know, I don't know that they could do that. But it's much more likely that they can stack some blocks because they've either seen somebody else do it or, you know, that kind of thing. So some of it's just they haven't had exposure to it. And then, so when you start talking about a 2-year-old, 2-year-olds are starting to talk. By the time they're 2, they should really be talking to you. They should be at least able to say 2 or 3 word utterances. I want that. Give me some. Stop doing that. You know, lots of things. I go bye-bye, that kind of stuff. They should talk all the time when they're 2. Just because they're developing so much language and getting you to be interested in what they're doing. Now's the time when autism starts to present itself at about 2 years old. Mostly because parents are a little more in tune with, hey, they're not talking and they should be. But generally, children with autism don't have any physical disabilities. If they do, it's caused from cerebral palsy or, you know, some other kind of thing that happened in utero or whatever. But just in general, children with autism don't present with any kind of physical delays. So it's just language. So if you don't expect your child to talk until they're 2, and they get to be about 2, and you're like, oh, you know, you kind of, you don't have anything else to measure it by. So that's why they start around 2 noticing. Most people don't recognize that their children should be tracking, you know, by 3 months and stuff like that. At 3 years old, they're starting to learn colors, shapes. They're starting to learn things that you teach them. You know, you're not going to learn the colors unless somebody teaches it to you, generally. Watching TV or playing a video game or something like that, they can learn things, but for the most part. Now they're thinking, they're feeling, they're screaming at you, they know what they're feeling, and they want you to know what they're feeling.
And they say, no!
They start doing pretend, so they want to do dress up, and they want to play with animals and toys, and so I read something the other day that was talking about that every child from about age 2 to about age 6 picks something that they're like an expert in. Some children pick up several things, but my child specifically was Thomas the Train. He knew everything about Thomas. He knew everything, every number, everybody's name. He knew their faces. Like I could show him a train, and he could tell the difference between the trains by the face. I still can't to this day tell you the difference between their faces, but he could. Dinosaurs. What the actual article was about, children who find it to be experts in dinosaurs or space exploration, like the planets and stuff. Those children tend to be much smarter children. Now, whether the chicken or the egg kind of thing, are they smarter and that's why they pick dinosaurs, or they pick dinosaurs and that makes them smarter? My thought is that they're smart and then they get attracted to dinosaurs for that reason, but who knows? It's a chicken egg kind of thing. So my nephew was a NASCAR fan. He was two, he could tell you every driver, every sponsor they had, and he couldn't read a thing, but he could tell you what Snickers said on the side of that car. And then, you know, every year, race car drivers change. They change their car, they change their sponsor, they change their number sometimes. He would know whenever it is the beginning of the season, he would know what their what their numbers were and stuff. And he was about 2 or 3. So if you can find what a child's interest is, then you really are able to teach them so many more things, just by virtue of that. My nephew is a dinosaur kid. He can tell you every dinosaur, and apparently in Jurassic Park they've made up new dinosaurs that aren't real.
Yep.
He can tell you all those too, and he can tell you whether they're real or made up dinosaurs.
Oh,
He's 4. Yeah. So, but he can't write his name, and he can't read anything, but he can tell you those things. So, you know, they just, they pick things. You probably think back to your childhood and think of the thing that girls tend to like things like LOL or some kind of like doll thing or something that's not necessarily scientific. They pick unicorns or, you know, the color purple, mermaids, the color purple, you know, some.
I was picking like Bionicle, tearing apart like these like NASCAR things. I was like ripping heads off the dolls. I was not into that stuff. I was
Not
like,
into it.
no, I was into every single boy toy ever like made. Like,
That's funny.
with the
Did you do Legos? Were you a Lego kind of kid?
Yeah, I was into Legos too. I was into building things a lot.
Oh.
Like the little marble things that would go
Oh,
around.
right.
Yeah, if somebody showed me a doll, I would just like.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that, you know what, we really, just stereotype our children. We just do. I think there are just as many girls who like trains, or who would like trains if they got encouraged to like a train, or dinosaurs, or you know, building with Legos. Children who can build with Legos have a very special spatial relation skill that I've never developed even in 22 years of playing with Legos. I cannot build a house, but you can see some children, they'll be like, and build a spaceship with turrets and the whole, I'm like, how did you do that? We have a little boy right now who can take the blocks and he can build a castle that you can walk through, and he's 4. They just have a special relation, you know, ability, and some people have it, some people don't, some people never get it. I know, you know, on this test when they had you to, like, they had it out flat and you had to tell what it would be if it was a 3-dimensional shape, those are the kind of children you can do that. He'll be able to pick, oh, that's a trapezoid, oh, that's a rectangular prism, and me, I'm like, you have to cut that out and fold it and see where we go with that. So I think I got you pretty much through what children do, just in general. When you have your own, you'll go, dang, that lady didn't tell me nothing about children. When you get around a group of 8-year-olds, they're all so different. You know, they're tall, they're short, they're fat, they're skinny, they're fast, they're slow, they're witty, they're dumb. You know, there's just a whole variation of them. And you can go back and see that same group of children at 9, and the ones who were witty are now not witty. The ones who were dumb are now smart. So you can't really judge a book by its cover, and you certainly can't judge a book by some piece of paper, like what they're supposed to do, because there's just a different, they just progress differently. They all progress through the same steps. Some miss a few here and there, but for the most part, they progress through the steps, just at different times. So. I feel like you guys can take this information with you, and maybe you'll have a paper to write or something that, these are kind of old handouts actually, but they don't change, they haven't changed, there's not much.
I was thinking about, when I was at the park a couple weeks ago, I had this little thing at the park, it looks like a swing, but it's a little chain, and a little piece here, and it sway down the road. What you're supposed to do is stand on it,
Yeah.
hold on to the,
Right.
and this little, maybe 18-month-to-a-year came, and I watched the child looked at it. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. And then she turned herself around and flopped down, and then she reached her hands out, trying to touch
The
chains, but her arms weren't long enough. Then she put her arms on the bottom and scooted this way. And it was interesting to me because I was thinking about if we leave kids alone long enough, how much they would learn. And then the next thing I know, she attracted the attention of this little boy. And he came up and she scooted over and he sat down there with boy. On the swing. And I would give it, you know, I think parents wonder if you're stereotypical to their kids, but I would have loved to have videoed that. That was about the
Yeah, don't
cutest
do
thing.
that.
Just to see, but just to see,
You're right.
I thought it was the
Right.
cutest thing that, you know, all of that, that's a lot of learning and social skills and all that stuff. That was really cute.
I was just wondering, is there like an extra copy of this? 'Cause I have one, sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't come in.
Oh, you're fine, I'm sorry, I didn't want.
I have troubles at my house where I'm at. Thank you so much.
One thing I'll tell you is that so Montessori really allows children to, what I would do as a teacher is I'm gonna show them what to do, sometimes in a group, sometimes one-on-one, and then I'm gonna let them go and do that. And a lot of parents are really not, they don't get that. They do not get what's appropriate for early childhood education. They think that they should be doing what you're doing, sitting there taking notes, writing their name 100 times a day. That is not appropriate early childhood education. So be an advocate for your job later on. Your job will be so much better if they've been able to think for themselves when they were 2 and 3, rather than me tell them what to think. We're going through this big thing right now where 4-year-olds should be in pre-K. I don't agree with that. I don't think that it's appropriate. I think that they should be in an environment where there's learning going on, but not sitting at a desk, going from this center to this center to this center to this center, go through the center. This is what you do. This is what you do. That is not appropriate to me. Children should have the freedom to move around their environment. They should have the freedom to interact with each other. This is boring sitting here listening to me talk to you. Well, think how boring that is for a 2-year-old. Think how boring that is for a 3 or 4-year-old. It is not appropriate. It's really not appropriate until they're about 8 or 9. But that's another whole, it's another whole soapbox.
So you feel like more of a daycare would be better off than just a preschool?
I think that preschool is fine as long as it's done appropriately. I consider myself a preschool. My children are free to move about. My children are given tasks to perform, and they're allowed to perform those tasks at their leisure. Children want to do what you want them to do. It's not like they're going to sit around and just, well, I'm not going to do anything because Miss Julie didn't tell me I had to do anything. They're not going to do that. They're going to go pick something to play with. So if you say, hey, I would really like for you to do those counting bears for me today, okay, whatever, that's fine with me. I would really like for you to go over there. Can you bring me those word lists and let's at least read them? Okay. They're not going to sit around and do nothing. They're not. They're going to do things.
More like interactive kind of learning.
Interactive, hands-on, playing with stuff. If I build a tower, I know how to build a tower. If I put this Lego in this spot and there's nothing underneath it, I'm going to learn that I have to put something underneath it so that it doesn't break. Okay? If a teacher tells me that, you can tell me that all day long.
So they're given an opportunity to make
But until
mistakes.
I learn that my tower's going to fall over if I don't put something under both pieces, I'm never going to learn it. One of the best examples is a pulley system. I can tell you what a pulley system does. If you pull this string, it goes up here and then it comes down here. But you're never going to understand that until you actually see a pulley do what a pulley's supposed to do, right? So most of the time when they're in about, I don't know, 4th grade, 3rd or 4th grade, they learn about pulleys and they see a picture in a book of what a pulley is. They don't know what a pulley is. until one day their dad lifts up the garage and they see, oh, hey,
That's a
that's
pulley.
a pulley. You know what I mean? Like until you see it visually, it's really hard for a little kid especially. Imagine if your dad told you how to drive, but he never got you in the car and showed you what to do. I don't want to be on the road with you people.
Yeah.
I still think that they should have PSAs about driving. When you come to a four-way stop, everyone has to stop, but the first person there gets to go first. You know, just some basic driving rules probably need to be on every 30 minutes or so. Just a little reminder of what you do. Just say.
I know you've been driving for however long, you do not have the right of way here.
If you have the right of way, take it.
Don't sit there.
Don't stop in the middle of the road and go, okay, go. Like, I don't have the right of way. I don't want to pull out in front of you or that car that doesn't see you stopping for me. Yeah, so, children are the same way. If you see it and you touch it and you play with it, you can do it. If somebody tells you what to do, not so much.
Yeah, the daycare that I worked at when I worked mostly with toddlers, so I was in the 2 to 2.5 group. They are amazing little people. They say a lot of things that they should never say, and you sit there going, where did you hear that?
Yeah, we just ignore
At home.
a lot.
I mean,
We
I
ignore
would
a lot.
have to like turn around and.
Or we look at each other and go,
like,
did she just say that word?
and then you have to turn back with like serious face and be like, okay, that's not okay to say. Like,
The 2.5, children that are 2.5, terrible twos, to me is about from really 18 months to 2.5. That's when the terribleness comes in, because they're really trying to decide, am I a baby, am I a big kid?
yes.
Are you know, do I want to do what you wanted me to do, or do I want to do what I want to do? There's kind of the struggle there. But
there's a big difference between them too. Like we had kids like I had one little boy, I will never forget this child, Evan. I stood like
Right.
after all these years,
Yeah,
I
you'll
still
never
remember this child's name because he was just like so far beyond everyone else in his class. Like even because that was the same age, like I don't know what his parents were doing with him at home, but he also, he never wanted to take a nap, never wanted nap time, which was fine, because we would try putting him down for his nap, he would refuse, but what we could not allow was for him, because he would try to wake up all the other kids.
oh yeah,
We were
yeah. No, nap time is sacred.
So,
no.
So we always had like activities ready
Right.
for him,
Right.
and we would just bring him in like a different room, and one of us would sit with him, and we do a different activity.
Well, really, what I'll tell you is that you were working with a child with special needs. It's not typically what you. Yeah, it's not typically what you think of as a child with special needs, but children who are extremely smart have special needs. It's the same thing.
You probably was gifted. I'm sure.
Absolutely. I had a child who Montessori teaches geography. Well, if you've ever seen Africa, it has about 100 countries. So we have a puzzle that has all the countries of Africa, and it comes apart. And if a 3-year-old takes that apart, well, hello. It's very difficult to put back together. I was like, oh no, what are we gonna do? Oh, Africa, let me get the control map out. And Jonathan said, well, that's Uganda. And he was looking at the shapes of the puzzles and could tell me the countries that they were. I was like, oh dear Lord, you are what's going on here? So we were thinking Asperger's, like, is there something wrong? Because he's way too smart. No, he's just really, really smart.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think everybody thinks their child is really smart, and everybody thinks their child is really cute. So just go with one of them, okay? Just go with it.
Yeah,
That's a baby. She's so smart. Because I mean, it really is. And, you don't want to offend anybody, but when you see a really, really smart, gifted child, you will know that child, and it will stick in your brain forever, because that child's going to be a child that's going to excel forever. That little boy that I'm talking about, I'm friends with his mom on Facebook. She posted not too long ago a picture. They live in South Carolina now, right near where the Civil War a huge battle was right in their backyard, so they, go watch the reenactments, and the children are very into it. So he's got a Civil War, like huge Civil War book beside his Thomas the Train book, you know, and his little dinosaur books, his little books he had when he was 4 and 5, and now this book when he's 8 that is way farther advanced than most even adults want to read. And it's just interesting, the dynamics of them, but once you meet a gifted child, you will never forget that child.
No, and then I will never forget Ian. He was kind of at the other end, in the sense of, he didn't have as many words, so he and Evan would get into it quite often, because Evan had so many words,
Right.
and Ian had not a lot of
Couldn't
words.
get the point
He
across.
would- Right, so he'd get frustrated very quickly, and he would end up biting.
Yes. Yes. Fighting is a big thing.
Yep, that was his way of, you know, we always have to remind him, Ian, you have to use your words, because we know you know these words,
Right.
and you need to use them. And tell Evan that you don't
Stop,
like that,
no,
like,
yeah.
just stop what he's doing, because Evan would poke the bear.
Well, he probably needed to move up to the next. You know,
Oh,
you can tell when they're ready to go. To me, a 5-year-old girl, get her out of my class. She is ready to move on, because they get to a certain point where they just,
Yeah.
the environment's just not conducive to their learning, and they want to learn. Very few children who have the capability, no child who has the capability to walk will not eventually learn how to walk. Now, there are some children who are not capable of walking, and that's a different story. But if they have the physical capability to learn how to walk, they will do that. And children who don't have the physical capability to will strive to do it. They will strive to walk, they will strive to talk, and they will strive to learn something. I've had a child who was so mentally incapacitated, but he still wanted to feed himself. He had drank out of a bottle. He was probably about 3, but he wanted to hold the bottle. That was about the most that his body was going to let him be capable of doing, but he wanted to do it, and they're going to strive to move and progress, not sit around and be stagnant. So when they sit around and are stagnant, that's because we've taught them.
I was just going to add that you'll find that anywhere, and you as a future teacher need to know what to do and how to meet their needs. And as a first grade teacher with a child that could read Harry Potter,
Yeah.
I had to adjust. I couldn't move him up,
Right.
you know,
That's not a
because of
choice.
his age. It was not a choice. But I had to figure out a way to meet his needs while he was so far ahead. And then I had one that could have taught my first grade math class, you know, and so you have to figure out how do you deal and what do you do, what,
Absolutely.
and it's a challenge.
Very much so, especially kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Some children have been in pre-K their whole, or like preschool, since they were born. They learned their colors when they were 1. Other children haven't even thought about what a color is. They've seen Mickey Mouse say this is a square, but hey, so when they get to kindergarten, and the expectations for what they should be able to do when they get finished with kindergarten, whew,
Have you looked at what those expectations?
yeah, I think they're feasible. I just think that it's going to be really
I
hard
think,
when 20 kids
is it by the first 9 weeks, it's supposed to be the second 9 weeks, they should be writing a complete sentence.
Yeah. Okay, and by that they mean they should be able to copy a complete sentence, not write. Well, it says with adult help, so with adult help is a very broad term. So, what I don't agree with is sight words. I don't think that children should be learning sight words at all until they're in at least the first grade, second grade, maybe. Why would you? I'm going to teach you how to put these things in order, counting from 1 to 10. But what I'm going to ask you to do is put them in. I want you don't put them in 1 to 10. Let's see. Can you put them in 7 first, and then 4, and then 8? It doesn't make sense. And if you teach a kid how the S says, and then you give them another word that it doesn't say that in, the is a hard word because it doesn't have any phonetic context. So if you're gonna teach them phonetics and then you take everything out of context, it really makes it, not really conducive to learning, but, hey, what do I know after 22 years?
Well, what I think about what Julie said too, about the hands-on and the practicing with something and the working with other people. And I thought, that's not just preschool. That was my philosophy. Most of my teaching experience was middle school. Guess what I did in middle school? That same kind of thing. I was facilitating. My kids were on the floor. My kids were at tables. My kids were around the room. My kids were out of their seats. And I was looked at like, what in the world are you doing in there? But my kids, and I didn't have the behavior problems everybody else had, because my kids were engaged.
I always, for 20 years, get the behavior child, because I don't have behavior children. I respect children and I speak to them appropriately, and I can read what they need, and I meet their needs, and I just don't have children with behaviors. Now, I certainly have overactive boys and, things like that, but behavior problems, I just don't generally have that. But I get all the kids that everybody says, oh, he's so bad. I need Julie to take that kid. He's so bad.
That was me.
Coming back, I see it.
It's just a different way of looking at how you teach that child.
The worst thing is a parent. If a parent tweaks you, if they say something to you, or they, if they tweak you, it is so hard to overcome that for the child. You don't want to take it out on the kid, but it is hard. It is hard to do. It is. Mom comes in and says, I don't know why she got Yep, okay. This is my fault. Okay. You horrible parent.
I feel like one of my comebacks would be, well, you may not understand, but now I do.
One time, there was a little boy, and he came in and he threw his book bag in, and he hit a parent who was dropping their kid off, and I was like, man, called his mom. I was like, look, Jamal's having a really bad day. Well, I don't know. She just yelled at me. I was like, okay, now I know why. Never mind, we'll keep him at school. Because, she was obviously not having a good day. Obviously, the whole day started out bad. So sending him home was just not the answer to that.
That's what I was about the other day, Shaq. We were talking about, was it you talking about music in the car, or was it Robert?
Yeah, I noticed my nephew, his teacher said my nephew, my little cousin, he has better days when we start the day off with music.
When it takes him to school.
Yeah.
The teacher recognized that?
I talked to him,
Awesome. That's awesome.
But he had started singing certain songs, and the teacher was wondering why he was singing Black Sabbath. I said, Mom asked me, and yeah.
Like, hey, that's what we sing on
That's
the
what
way
we
to
do in
school.
the car.
Hey. Yeah, maybe you should tone it down just some Rafi or some, some Lori Berkner or something. Just tone it down just a dab.
But you notice the difference when you say with the routine.
Yeah,
of listening to music.
even just waking him up, just throw some music on. He's more.
Maybe you should go to bed with music too.
He don't sleep in my house.
Well, I mean, saying tell him to put on low music at night, and a classical kind of thing or whatever. Classical music definitely builds the mathematical mind. So, that it's probably just where he's coming from. That rhythm and getting himself organized, and hey, that's fantastic that the teacher recognized that. Yeah, keep that up. Things like that are little nuggets, little teeny nuggets. We'll have a kid come in and they'll just be like, horrible, things are rotten, what's going on? Oh, well, grandma's in the hospital. Tell us this, help us out. We're dealing with this kid for 12 hours and you're not telling us really pertinent information. So, but thanks guys, hopefully I enlightened you a little bit and we got a little bit of child development